For 3 years, Frank's family thought he was becoming difficult. He'd stopped joining conversations at family dinners. He'd sit at the end of the table, quiet, a little apart, while everyone else talked and laughed. He'd started answering questions in ways that didn't quite fit, as if he'd misunderstood. He seemed more withdrawn, more irritable, quicker to say never mind, and wave a hand when someone tried to include him. His daughter worried, privately, that this was the beginning of dementia. The confusion, the withdrawal, the disconnection, it all fit the picture she feared. It wasn't dementia. Frank couldn't hear. His hearing had declined so gradually over so many years that no one, including Frank, had fully registered how bad it had become. He wasn't answering strangely because his mind was failing. He was answering strangely because he was catching maybe half the words at that noisy dinner table and filling in the rest with guesses. He wasn't withdrawing because he'd lost interest in his family. He was withdrawing because straining to follow every conversation had become exhausting and humiliating, and retreating into silence was easier than constantly asking people to repeat themselves. But here is the part that makes this so much more than a story about hearing. Frank's untreated hearing loss wasn't just isolating him. It was, according to a growing mountain of research, actively increasing his risk of developing the very dementia his family feared. The two things were connected in a way almost no family understands. I'm telling you Frank's story today because hearing loss is one of the most common conditions in older adults, one of the most undertreated, and this is the part that stuns families. One of the single largest modifiable risk factors for dementia that we know of, not a minor inconvenience, not a cosmetic issue, a major addressable threat to your parents' brain, their independence, and their connection to the people they love. And most families have no idea. Today I'm going to show you exactly how hearing loss damages the aging brain, why it's so consistently missed and dismissed, the warning signs that your parents' hearing is failing, and what you can do about it, because this is one of the most hopeful topics in all of elder care. Because here is the truth at the center of this video. Treating hearing loss may be one of the most powerful things a family can do to protect a parent's brain, and it's sitting in plain sight, ignored. Before we go further, this is information that could change the trajectory of your parents' cognitive health, and it works best acted on early. Share this video with the family members who care about your parent. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Every week one published content exactly like this, clinical, honest, and built for families navigating the care of an aging parent. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Let me start with the connection that most families have never heard because it reframes everything. How does hearing loss actually damage the brain? For a long time, hearing loss was treated as a purely mechanical, ear-related problem, a nuisance, but not a health threat. That understanding is now completely outdated. Major research has identified untreated hearing loss as one of the largest potentially modifiable risk factors for dementia across a person's life. That word, modifiable, is what makes this so important. It means this is a risk you can actually do something about. And researchers estimate that addressing hearing loss could prevent or delay a meaningful portion of dementia cases. Few single interventions in all of aging carry that kind of potential. So how does difficulty hearing lead to a damaged brain? Scientists point to several mechanisms working together. The first is cognitive load. When hearing is impaired, the brain has to work extraordinarily hard just to make sense of degraded sound, constantly straining, guessing, and filling in gaps. This effort consumes mental resources that would otherwise go to memory, thinking, and understanding. Imagine your brain spending so much energy just decoding the words that there's little left over for actually processing and remembering them. Over time, this constant strain appears to take a toll. The second is brain changes from lack of stimulation. The parts of the brain that process sound, when they stop receiving rich auditory input, appear to change and shrink. Studies using brain imaging have found that hearing loss is associated with faster rates of brain atrophy, the brain literally shrinking more quickly, particularly in regions important for memory and cognition. The brain, in a sense, follows a use it or lose it principle, and understimulation from hearing loss may accelerate its decline. And the third mechanism is the one that connects directly to everything else on this channel: social isolation. Hearing loss makes conversation exhausting and often embarrassing, so people withdraw, exactly as Frank did. And social isolation, as I've covered before, is itself a major independent risk factor for dementia, depression, and cognitive decline. So hearing loss delivers a double blow. It strains the brain directly, and it drives the isolation that damages the brain further. These effects compound. Put together, this is why untreated hearing loss is no longer considered a minor issue. It is a genuine threat to the brain, and critically, a threat you can act against. Now let me talk about why this stays hidden for so long, because understanding the silence is the key to breaking it. Hearing loss in older adults is usually gradual. It creeps in over years, so slowly that neither the person nor the family notices a clear before and after. There's no dramatic moment. The person simply imperceptibly adapts, turning the television up, nodding along, avoiding noisy places, and unconsciously withdrawing from situations where hearing is hard. By the time it's obvious, it's often been significant for a long time. There's also denial and stigma, which are powerful. Many older adults resist admitting hearing loss because they associate hearing aids with being old and frail, a visible marker of decline they'd rather not accept. So they hide it, compensate for it, and avoid dealing with it, sometimes for years. And here's a cruel irony. The very devices that carry that stigma have been transformed. Modern hearing aids are often tiny, discreet, and sophisticated, a world away from the bulky devices people picture. And critically, this is the heart of your video's message. The symptoms of untreated hearing loss look almost exactly like the symptoms of cognitive decline. Someone who can't hear well seems confused, gives inappropriate answers, appears disconnected, struggles to follow conversations, and withdraws socially. Families see this and think dementia. Sometimes even clinicians can be misled. This means hearing loss is not just missed, it is actively mistaken for something else, and the real, treatable cause goes unaddressed while the family braces for a disease their parent may not even have. If you're finding this valuable, and I hope you are, take 1 second right now and hit the like button. It genuinely helps this content reach other families who might be mistaking hearing loss for something far more frightening. Like and keep watching. So let me give you the warning signs. The specific things that suggest your parents' hearing may be failing, even if they've never said a word about it. Watch for the television or radio volume creeping up, louder than is comfortable for everyone else in the room. Watch for frequent requests to repeat things. What? Say that again? Huh? Or just as telling the opposite. A person who stopped asking and instead just nods along, having given up on catching it. Watch for difficulty following conversations, especially in noisy places like restaurants or family gatherings, where background noise makes hearing hardest. This is often where it shows first. Watch for answers that don't quite fit the question, a classic sign of someone catching only fragments and guessing. Watch for complaints that people are mumbling. When everyone seems to mumble, the problem is usually the listener's hearing. Watch for trouble on the telephone. And watch, above all, for the social withdrawal, pulling back from conversations, gatherings, and activities that used to bring joy, growing quieter and more isolated at exactly the tables where they used to be most alive. That withdrawal is the sign I most want you to notice, because it's the one families most consistently misread. When your once social parent goes quiet at the family dinner before you conclude they're declining cognitively or losing interest, ask yourself, can they actually hear what's being said? The answer may be simpler and far more fixable than you fear. Now for the hopeful part, what you can actually do, because this is a problem with genuinely good solutions. The first and most important step is simply getting your parents' hearing tested. A proper hearing evaluation by an audiologist is straightforward, painless, and revealing. Yet most older adults have never had one, or haven't in many years. This single step, a hearing test, is the doorway to everything else, and it's one of the most valuable and overlooked appointments in elder care. If you take nothing else from this video, take this: get your parents' hearing tested. If hearing loss is found, the primary treatment for the most common type is hearing aids. And here's the encouraging news. Modern hearing aids are dramatically better than what most people imagine. Smaller, more discreet, more effective, and increasingly sophisticated in how they handle noise and speech. And there's growing evidence that treating hearing loss with hearing aids may help protect cognitive function. Research suggests that in older adults at higher risk, treating hearing loss can slow the rate of cognitive decline. In other words, this isn't only about hearing better. It may be about protecting the brain. Beyond hearing aids for certain kinds of hearing loss, there are other options worth discussing with an audiologist or an ear, nose, and throat specialist. There's also a simpler barrier worth checking first, because it's so easily missed: earwax. A buildup of earwax can cause significant, sudden-seeming hearing loss, and it's completely reversible with proper removal by a professional. It's always worth ruling out. And here's something your family can do regardless: simply communicating in ways that help. Face your parent when you speak so they can see your lips. Reduce background noise. Turn off the TV during conversations. Speak clearly, at a natural pace, without shouting. Get their attention before you start talking. These small adjustments reduce the strain and the isolation, and they signal to your parent that connecting with them matters. But let me be clear, these are a complement to proper treatment, not a substitute for it. The goal is to get the hearing evaluated and treated, and to support connection along the way. This is the moment where I want to ask you something directly. If this video has made you rethink a parent you assumed was declining or getting difficult. If you're realizing their withdrawal might be hearing, not their mind, share this video with the family members who share their care. This is a reframe that can spare a family months of unnecessary fear and lead to a genuinely fixable solution. Share it. Leave a comment below telling me what you've noticed with your own parent. And subscribe if you haven't yet. I want to underline the timing because it matters. Don't wait. There's a tendency for families to postpone dealing with hearing. It doesn't feel urgent. The parent resists. It's easy to keep adapting around it. But every year of untreated hearing loss is a year of cognitive strain, accelerated brain change, and deepening isolation. The evidence increasingly suggests that addressing hearing loss earlier is better for protecting the brain. And there's a practical reason, too. The longer someone goes without hearing well, the harder it can be for the brain to readjust to hearing aids later, because it's partly forgotten how to process those sounds. Earlier treatment tends to mean easier, more successful adaptation. So if you're noticing the signs now is the time to act, not next year. And approach the conversation with sensitivity. Given the stigma, framing matters. Rather than "you can't hear anymore," try focusing on connection and brain health. I miss having you in the conversation. And I read that treating hearing actually helps protect your memory. Let's just get it checked. Make it about staying sharp and staying connected, not about decline. That framing opens doors that a blunt approach slams shut. Here is what your family can do. Today, reconsider what you've been seeing. If your parent has grown quiet, withdrawn, confused, or difficult in conversations, hold the real possibility that hearing loss, not cognitive decline, is the cause or a large part of it. That reframe is the first step. This week, talk with your parent, gently and framed around connection and brain health, about getting their hearing tested. And check the simple things. Is the TV always loud? Do they constantly ask for repeats or nod along having given up? This month, schedule a proper hearing evaluation with an audiologist. Have earwax ruled out. If hearing loss is found, pursue treatment. Modern hearing aids, discussed with the audiologist, and understand that this is about protecting the brain, not just the ears. Ongoing. Communicate in ways that help. Face them, reduce background noise, speak clearly, and keep them included and connected. Support the treatment and support the relationship. Here is what I want you to carry with you from today. Frank's family got him tested finally, after 3 years of quietly fearing the worst. His hearing loss was significant, and it was treatable. Fitted with modern hearing aids, and given a little time to adjust, Frank came back to the dinner table. Not metaphorically, but actually. He rejoined the conversations. The confusion that had frightened his daughter largely disappeared, because it had never been confusion at all. It had been a man catching half the words and guessing at the rest. The withdrawn, irritable stranger had been all along a man straining to stay connected to a world he could no longer hear. The tragedy would have been never finding out. The tragedy would have been accepting the decline as inevitable, bracing for dementia, and letting the real, fixable cause go untreated year after year, while the isolation and the cognitive strain quietly did their damage. You now know what most families don't, that hearing loss is not a minor issue, that it looks unervingly like dementia, that it may actively threaten the brain, and that it is one of the most treatable, most hopeful problems in all of aging. If your parent has been slipping away from the conversation, don't assume the worst. Check the simplest thing first. It might just bring them back. If this video gave you something real, something you're going to act on, or share with someone, or carry into a conversation with your own family, please take a moment to like it. Share it with the people who share your parents' care, because this reframe could spare them so much unnecessary fear. And leave a comment below telling me what you're navigating, what's worked for your family, or what you wish you'd known sooner. I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please subscribe. This is where I publish honest, clinical, practical guidance for families trying to do right by the people they love every single week. Thank you for being here and for caring enough to watch all the way to the end. That attention is exactly what makes the difference. I'll see you soon.